Okay, so yesterday's lesson was a really tough lesson. So that means today, like I said before, whenever we had a difficult homework and I saw that people weren't getting it, I want to make sure that we go over it and spend more time on it. So today's lesson is just going to be watching the video and then of me going over the homework, and then you just go to the assignment and type any questions that you might have. Or if you don't have any questions, you understood what I did, then just go in and just type I understood it, or all my questions were answered, or something like that. Just type something so that I have a grade for you. All right, so the first homework problem was sine of 150 degrees. So the first step is to draw the angle. So let me go ahead and draw a 150-degree angle. All right, so starting, remember you always start over here. So I will draw a 150-degree angle. Well, let's see, this is 0, 90, 180, and 270. So then 150 degrees would be, let's see, between the 180 and the 90. So which one should be closer to? 150 degrees should be closer to 180. So I will make sure to, when I draw it, that I make it closer to the 180. Then your next step is to draw a line from the angle that you drew up or down to the nearest x-axis. So there's two sides to the x-axis. There's the negative side and the positive side, but this side is going to be closer. So that's where you're going to draw the line to. Remember, it's never to the y-axis. So from here, let me just even this out a little. So from where I drew my angle, I will draw the line that goes down to the x-axis. Every time you do that, it should create a right angle. Then, so we drew a 150, so let me write that in, 150 degrees. Then you have to find the measure of the reference angle. So the reference angle is basically, is this right here. So this angle right here, and we need to figure out how many degrees it was from 150 to 180, because that's where we went, right? So from 150 to 180, that is 30 degrees. So I will write in a 30. So then I will write in the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So then across from the 30 is going to be your opposite side. So this is opposite over here. And across from the 90-degree angle should be the hypotenuse. And the one that's next to the 30, the one that's next to the reference angle is adjacent. So I will write that in. And then you have to go back to the 30, 60, 90 triangle. Since this has a 30, that means this is a 30, 60, 90, by the way. So in the 30, 60, 90 triangle, I don't have it written anymore, but let me just go over it really quick. So let me just do a quick sketch. Here's a 30, 60, 90. The smaller would be the 30. The bigger one would be the 60. Across from the 30, remember, that's what you need to remember. What's across from what? So across from the 30 is a 1. Across from the 60 is a square root of 3. And across from the right angle, across from the 90 is a 2. So then I'm going to do the same thing on this triangle that I just drew. So across from the 30 should be a 1. So opposite of the 30 should be a 1. Hypotenuse should be 2. And the adjacent is going to be the one that's across from the 60, which in this case the 60 would be up here, is going to be square root of 3. So now I'm going to erase this because I don't need it anymore. So now we're doing sine. So I'm going to figure out, remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse. So then that's what I'm going to set up for my answer. So opposite is 1 and hypotenuse is 2. So sine of 150 is a half. Now I just need to figure out whether it's positive or negative. So that's where you remember the phrase all students take classes. So this would be all students take classes. And then remember, that tells you which ones are positive. So in quadrant 1, all of them are positive. In quadrant 2, sine is positive. In quadrant 3, tangent's positive. And in quadrant 4, cosine is positive. Now, the only one that matters in this case is the one that I drew the angle in, so the quadrant 2. So remember, in quadrant 2, sine should be positive, cosine and tangent is negative. Though, since we are doing sine for this problem, that means that our answer should be positive, which it is. So there's your answer. Positive 1/2. All right. All right, cosine of 240. So I will again draw the angle. So let me start with that. Let's see, 0, 90, 90, 180, 270. You don't have to write this in every time. It just helps to visualize it when you see the numbers there. And a 240-degree angle would be between the 180 and 270. It should be closer to the 270, so make sure you draw it closer to the 270. And then, remember, you always go back to the x-axis, never to the y. So you should be either going to this side or this side. So since it's, and you just go to the closer one. So the closest one is the left side. So I will draw a straight line up to the x-axis. And that will create a right angle. And then you need to figure out how big is the reference angle. So we just drew here a 240-degree angle. So, but we just went back to, so the reference angle is this right here, which is however many degrees it was from the 240 back to the 180. So how many degrees was that? Well, 180 and 240, that is 60 apart. So the reference angle is 60. So that tells me that this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle instead of a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So again, write in your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So hypotenuse would be across from the 90. Opposite would be opposite of the 60, and or opposite of the reference angle, which in this particular case is 60. Could be different. And then adjacent would be this one. Now we again go back to the 30, 60, 90 that I told you had to memorize. So here's a 30, 60, and then, so remember, across on the 30 is a 1, across on the 60 is square root of 3, and the hypotenuse is 2. So translating that from this triangle to the one that's similar that we just drew right here, then that would make, again, the hypotenuse is 2. And across from the 60 should be the square root of 3. And then the 30 is over here, even though I didn't write it. So that means that across from the 30 is a 1. Okay, so don't need this triangle. Remember, you're supposed to memorize that one. So we are doing cosine. So out of the 3 sides, the only 2 that you need for cosine is going to be adjacent and hypotenuse. So that means we do not need the opposite side because cosine does not use opposite. So then we just do, cosine was adjacent over hypotenuse, right? So then the answer, let's see. So the answer for cosine adjacent over hypotenuse would be, again, 1 over 2, it looks like. And then you just need to figure out, is this a positive 1/2 or a negative 1/2? So remember, again, all students take classes, and that tells you which one's positive. So really, we only care about the quadrant 3 in this case, so I will erase the other ones because we don't need those, since the angle that we drew was not in that quadrant. So in this quadrant, quadrant 3, tangent is positive, sine and cosine is negative. Since we are doing cosine, that means that our answer should be negative. And so there you go. Negative 1/2 is the answer to this one. All right, last one. So tangent of 45 degrees. So tangent of 45, again, I will start by graphing it. So let me start with that. 45 degrees would be between 0 and 90, so right there in the middle. Then then you're going to close it to make a triangle. Remember, you always go up or down to the nearest x-axis. Here's the nearest x-axis, so I will drop the line right there. And then that creates a right angle. So this was 0 degrees, and then the angle that we drew was 45 degrees. Therefore, that means that the reference angle, this one should be easy, is a 45-degree angle, because from 0 to 45. So that tells us that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So let's write in which one's the hypotenuse. So across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. Across from the angle that's given is opposite, and this one must be adjacent. Then remember, you're supposed to memorize the 45, 45, 90 triangle. And I'm just going to do a quick little sketch here. So 45, 45, 90, the legs are both 1, and the hypotenuse is square root of 2. So I'm going to do the same thing here. On this triangle, the hypotenuse should be square root of 2. And the other two sides of the triangle should be a 1. Now I'm done with this. I don't need it anymore. I will erase it. So we're doing tangent of 45 degrees. So tangent, you need to remember that it is opposite over adjacent. So opposite and adjacent would be 1 over 1. So that's all I need. 1 over 1. Now I just need to figure out whether it's positive or negative. So remember, all students take classes, and that tells you which ones are positive. So in quadrant 1, all of them are positive. So that means that my final answer for this one is going to be positive 1 divided by 1, which is just 1. So there you go. There's your answers to these. So after you've watched this video, just go and I think the button says take test. It's not really a test. It's just how it looks like on Edsby. They call it a test just because I'm having you submit an actual response rather than a picture like I usually do for the assignments. So yeah, go in and do that. And that's the only assignment for today.